Welcome to Club E. Hi, I'm Rick Brimacombe of Brimacombe and Associates. I am your architect of business growth. We'll work with you to unlock your potential and amplify the scale of your company. Today, we're talking about helping entrepreneurs and small business owners see their financial future. I want to thank our sponsors, Irish Titan, an e-commerce and web development firm, Boulay Group, CPAs and advisors, Highland Bank, a locally owned community bank, Romaine Berg, a digital marketing agency, Minnesota Sales, a sales acceleration firm, and the Network Connect, a catalytic gateway for growing your company. Before we get started, hit the subscribe and like button for Club E. I'll wait for you. It's right down by the video. That allows us to better serve you, our wonderful audience, as well as let you know when we are going live. You can also now catch Club E events on your favorite podcast platform, whether it be Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and many others. I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Roger Scherping. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And Roger's company, ProjectionSmart. You can see Roger's contact info in the comments field and access him there digitally. All right, Roger, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your firm, and the various activities that you're involved in.
Sure. So I grew up in central Minnesota, but I've lived in the Twin Cities ever since college. I started out as a CPA and worked as a controller and CFO for about 15 years. And about 20 years ago, I made a big change and I started managing small businesses. The biggest company I managed, you might have heard of Clam, the ice fishing company, was president there for a couple of years. But most of the companies I managed were struggling. They were having difficulty. They were either cash flow problems, or they weren't growing, or they just weren't returning the kind of profit that the owner wanted. And I was always able to get the company back on its feet and on a path for profitable growth. Then one day, I read the book Traction. And when I got to the section in there that talked about integrator, I said, hey, that's me. That's what I do. I go into these small businesses and I listen to the owner and I hear what they want to do with the business, where they want it to go. And then I turn around and I work with the team and I make it happen. And I've been doing that for a few years now. And mostly I consult with companies that are using EOS as their operating system. I also have a side gig, which is I've taken everything I know about managing companies, managing small companies, understanding finance, doing projections, and I created ProjectionSmart, which we're going to talk about, which has the simplest way for the small business owner to do a financial projection for their business. On the personal side, my wife and I have 3 kids that are scattered around the country. I have some hobbies that I really enjoy: woodworking. I like to make furniture. I read a lot. I read about 85 books a year. I also like to play basketball, and I haven't been on the court for 6 months, and it's really starting to bother me. But and I also coach. I coach youth basketball, and I've been doing that for about 20 years.
And I understand the bookcases in the background there are some of your creations.
They are. I made those. They're ladder bookshelves.
And then on the basketball front, I too, over the years, have enjoyed youth basketball and playing basketball myself. I don't want to say addicting, but certainly a lot of fun.
It is fun, and man, it keeps you active. I dread the day I have to quit. I really do.
And then on the coaching front, before we got started, you mentioned that you enjoy coaching the younger kids, maybe a little bit older, a little bit more so than the older ones.
Yeah, I mean, I've done everything from 3rd grade up to 8th grade, and I've done boys and girls. I like it all. If I had to choose, I like the younger kids, the third and fourth graders especially. The reason I like them is they'll just do whatever you tell them to do. There's no attitude. There's no teenage eye rolling. You tell them, go run around the gym, they'll just go run around the gym, and it's really nice.
Yeah, all right. It's always good to work with folks that are listening. Sometimes the CEOs or CFOs, not so much, eh?
Well, we're not going to go there today.
All right. All right. Before we get to our event, let's discuss what you, our audience, can receive for your participation. The hashtag today is #finance. To enter into a drawing for a free 3-month subscription of either the ProjectionSmart startup tool for entrepreneurs, or the ProjectionSmart growth tool for existing businesses. And again, the website is ProjectionSmart.com. All right, let's start talking about ProjectionSmart. You've partnered with Club E on the distribution, as we're a believer in the power of the products in our audience. And you can learn more in the tools section of clube.com. As far as its genesis, was there like an aha moment where you had the idea for ProjectionSmart?
Yes, there was. And it was just kind of a long time coming. I had turned around all these small businesses that were in trouble. And one day I looked back across all of the experiences that I had, and I said, you know, there was one thing that I did that was in common to all of them. And that is in all of them, and these contributed to my success. And that is, I was able to figure out what was going to happen. I mean, I'm a CPA and I'm good with spreadsheets. So I would figure out, you know, what does our revenue look like, and what do our expenses look like, and our cost of sales, and what can we expect for cash flow? And I could start to figure out things like, well, when are we going to start to make a profit? And when will we have positive cash flow? And geez, do I need to go talk to a bank right now? And all those things really helped me be successful. And I thought, man, every small business should do this. I don't care if you're in trouble or not. You get your financial statements on the 10th of the month and you look backwards to see where you've been. Well, why not take 15 more minutes and look forward and see what the future looks like, so you know what's coming at you? Because I've seen small businesses struggle. They have a hard time telling what the future holds. They have a hard time understanding the impact, the financial impact of the decisions that they make. And I just felt like there's got to be something we can do for these small companies that don't have the resources of a big company. There are lots of tools out there. Your company's here will get you to the next level, but there's very little for the small business, and that's what I tried to do.
And how long have you been working on the ProjectionSmart idea again?
I probably came up with the idea about 5 years ago and created it as a spreadsheet. And I was playing around with it, and I showed it to my son, who at the time was a computer engineering student at the University of Michigan. And he looked at the idea and he said, well, I could do that. So he was the original developer, and he wrote the 2 apps for us. And I now have, he's moved on now, and I have another local developer. But yeah, that started about 5 years ago.
Okay, and then a reminder to everybody, ProjectionSmart.com is the website. You can also get at the product through the tools section on clube.com. And we are a believer in what Roger is doing here, and as such have partnered with Roger on the distribution of the product. Reminder, put in #finance, enter in your questions. We've already received some questions, and we'll get to those later, Roger. Anyway, who is the target market for ProjectionSmart?
Sure. So first of all, it's for entrepreneurs, people who are starting up a new business and don't have a finance background to help them think it through. And it's also for small businesses. My target market was the kinds of companies that I had jumped in and helped fix. And these are companies under 10 million in sales, owned by someone who does not have a background in finance or accounting, and who does not have a controller or a CFO to help them with these kinds of decisions. The goal is to teach them how to do their own projections so that they don't need an outside accountant to help them make some of these decisions.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. So what, talk a little bit more, I know you touched on it a little bit, but go a little bit more into kind of what drove you to focus on what you did with the creation of ProjectionSmart.
Sure, so I knew I needed to make a tool that was effective. That was kind of obvious, it needed to work. But I told my son early on in the development process, I said, this has to be simple. It has to be easy to use. It won't be successful if it's not. And the fact that it's so easy to use, so easy to understand, really distinguishes ProjectionSmart from the other tools that are out there. People come to us all the time and say, man, you could add this and you could add that. And I listen, but we always have to balance that additional capability against, well, is it going to get too complicated for the small business owner to understand, the guy without the finance background? And I'm really happy to say the most frequent comment that we get is people talk about, geez, it's so easy to use. That's what we hear the most.
Mm-hmm. And for the smaller companies, great to partner with Roger. Reminder that Boulay Group is a longtime sponsor of Clubby. If you start getting into the bigger companies, both can help you push your business forward. Again, ProjectionSmart, and you get access to it through the tools section on the Clubby website. Talk about the two different products that ProjectionSmart has.
Sure. So with keeping with this theme of trying to keep things easy to understand, it just made sense to us to create not one tool that uses for all purposes, but to create specific tools for specific needs. So we have two. If you're an entrepreneur who's starting up a business and wants to know if this thing makes sense financially and whether it will fly, we have our startup tool. And that helps this entrepreneur make kind of a go, no-go decision. Does this thing work or not? And they can use the tool and it'll help them figure that out. And the second tool we call growth, and that's for existing businesses. And that'll help them see the future, understand the financial impact of their decisions, and get the peace of mind that comes from knowing where their business is going.
And then for myself, trained finance guy like you, both undergrad and graduate school, and then have background in finance through doing investment research, investment banking, and then venture capital. I definitely believe in the power of the financials. You, obviously, being financially oriented as well with the CPA and all the various companies you've worked with. From a business leader or business owner's perspective, why is it so important for businesses to do projections?
Sure. Well, do you know that when a lot of people start businesses, they do so not knowing if it's even going to make a profit? They don't know if it's going to be able to pay them the salary that they need to survive on. They really don't know how to set their pricing or how much cash they're going to need to get the business going. Sadly, most people just start the business and hope for the best, and they figure it out as they go along, or they don't. So I think it's really important for an entrepreneur. If you're going to stick the money and the time into a concept, it'd be good to know before you launch whether this thing makes sense or not, rather than going through the investment. So I think it's really important for an entrepreneur to understand that. And for existing businesses, it's a whole set of other things. The first one is probably just to anticipate issues. You never know, your business is going along, you never know if some event might happen, like, oh, I don't know, say a global pandemic might come along. But you need to be able to anticipate. In fact, I heard the other day that out of every 10 years, there will be 7 ordinary years, there will be 2 outstanding years, and there will be 1 devastating year. So are you prepared for that 1 out of 10 to come along? Another reason I anticipate issues is you can't call up your banker on the Thursday evening before the next payroll and tell them you can't make payroll the next day. You can't wait that long. You've got to tell them months ahead of time. So that falls under the category of anticipating issues to make your business successful.
Yeah, and I see. Sorry, go ahead.
No. The second one is understanding the financial impact that your decisions have. I know a guy who bought 3 franchises and he opened the first one right away. And I asked him, so how are you going to know when it's time to open the second one and the third one? And he just looked at me and shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. He had no financial tool or instrument to help him think through some very critical decisions. So financial impact is another one. And the third one is, as a business owner, you're going to have to talk to bankers and investors. You're going to have to be articulate about your business. And so you have to understand your business. I talked to one banker who said a business owner came to him about a loan, and he dutifully brought a business projection with him, and he handed it to the banker. And the banker started going through it and began to ask the guy questions. And the business owner just held up his hand and said, no, don't ask me any questions. Somebody did these for me. I really don't understand them. And the banker promptly took the projection and handed it back to the guy and said, well, thanks for coming in, right? Because he didn't understand his own business.
Yeah, not good, not good at all. So a reminder to everybody, #finance to submit your questions, as well as to get into a drawing for a 3-month subscription to ProjectionSmart. I've had a couple of questions come in. I want to address those, Roger, if I may. Question from Chris G, longtime listener. Thanks, Chris, for tuning in again. Appreciate it very much. Hope you and the family are well. Chris mentions that he's not a financial person, not financially oriented. He does use QuickBooks, as I'm sure a lot of small businesses do. What are some of the most important or most valuable reports in QuickBooks that Chris or folks like Chris could review?
Sure. QuickBooks is an invaluable tool. They've taken something very complicated, which is historical accounting, and made it easy for people to understand. But what QuickBooks does, we have to remember, they help you look backwards. They help you see where you've been. They provide reports which help you see what's happened at your business. The basic financial statements are a balance sheet, which shows what you own, what you owe, and how much is left. And then the income statement, or the profit and loss, P&L, whatever you want to call it, that tells you how much you've been increasing your equity, increasing or decreasing your equity over the last month or year. And the cash flow, which is really, really underutilized by business owners. Most people probably couldn't name what the third financial statement was, because it's really underutilized. We actually make it's a very big part of everything we do in ProjectionSmart, because that's really what drives your business. So I'd say those are the three, and you can get those three out of QuickBooks: balance sheet, P&L, and cash flow.
Yep, and I think you hit on a key differentiator is QuickBooks help you look backward. ProjectionSmart can help you look forward.
Right.
And then a couple of other questions here. Question from John A, longtime listener and participant in Club E. Thanks, John, for being out there today. How does ProjectionSmart help startups with bootstrapping their business? It's common for early stage businesses to be cash strapped, and where the projections aren't totally refined yet. So how does ProjectionSmart help in that instance?
Well, it's a tool for you to take your ideas, your thoughts of how the business is going to proceed, and put it into numbers, right? So if you could just start it and say, well, I hope this works. Or you go through and you say, well, I'm going to have these products, and I'm going to sell this many, and it's going to ramp up in this way, and my pricing is going to be this, and my costs are going to be this, and then it says, what are your expenses going to be, your overhead expenses month to month. And what that does, and I've seen this in the classroom where I really like it, it's these, you take a person who has this idea and it's kind of up in the clouds, but you make them quantify everything. You make them say, okay, you're going to sell something. Okay, what is the price? How many are you going to sell? Put it down, put it in the model. And then you say, let's move on to the next step. And you go step by step, and you take this kind of nebulous idea and you refine it, and you put it down in the numbers. And then you let the program do the work, and you look at the results, and you probably go, oh, that isn't, ooh, I didn't expect that. Okay, now comes the work of refining. Going back and saying, well, maybe my pricing isn't quite right, or maybe I can reduce my costs, or maybe I don't need that much money the first year to live on. You can go through it, and you really, that's what I really like, is you take this nebulous idea and you get it down to quantitative numbers and reports.
So dovetailing off of that question, one coming in from Rob, regarding ProjectionSmart and training and advice on forecasting while still pre-revenue. You just touched on a few of those items, but if you tried to tie up in a nice bow, forecasting with pre-revenue, and any suggestions or tips for doing that?
Well, it's not too different from what we talked about. Pre-revenue, you're probably working off a cash balance, right? You're starting with your nest egg, you're starting with your initial investment, and it comes down to what's my runway? How much time do I have before we have to get revenue coming in? So if you can figure out your runway, if you can say, well, I spend this much for this expense and this the rent, and I got to pay myself and I got to pay my team, and you can start to do the same sort of take the nebulous and make it definite, and you can start to see what your runway looks like and how long that you have before you have to hit that revenue figure.
Very, very good point. Question from John, and tying in with what you brought up earlier about the banks. I see where banks like forecasts. Do private investors seek something similar or different based on your experience?
Well, similar, definitely similar. The conversation you have with a bank would probably be very similar to you would have one that you would have with a private investor. Probably less formal. I mean, banks have rules that they have to follow. Private investors do what they want. They set their own rules. But you have to show the same ability to articulate your business, not only on the ideas of it, but also the numbers. You have to be able to articulate, here's how we plan to make money, here's our plan, here's our projection. And that's what gives either the banker or the investor the confidence to move forward with you.
Yep. Reminder, ProjectionSmart can be found in the tools section of the clubby.com website, #finance to go into the drawing for a free 3-month subscription. You mentioned when we were talking before about your background and the different things that you've been up to. Do you describe yourself as an entrepreneur? And also, how about describing yourself as a visionary?
Entrepreneur doesn't come naturally to me as a self-identifier. Technically, I guess I am, because I started my consulting business and I now started this software business. I'm deep down, I'm an accountant. I'm a very risk-averse person. I thought someday I might purchase a business, but I really didn't see myself starting a business. And then visionary, we talk a lot about visionaries in EOS. Visionaries are the big thinkers. They're the people that have 15 new ideas every morning before breakfast. They have the blue sky thoughts in their heads. They can see things that other people can't. They can see the future in ways that others can't. But being more of an accountant, I'm more of a linear thinker. I go from point A to point B to point C. I go completely in order. So I think I'm doing okay as a visionary at my jobs. But I've had the good fortune to rely on some very good visionary friends to help me through the process. I guess the way I think of it, a visionary, they create something where no one else maybe sees a need yet. And I love that quote that Henry Ford said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. But he saw something way better, and he created something where, in my case, I saw a gap. I saw an opportunity. I saw these small businesses that were struggling, and I knew exactly where, and I knew exactly why they were struggling. So I just kind of saw that opportunity and then acted on it. So entrepreneur, yes. Visionary, no.
But you put yourself out there in terms of taking the risk to launch something new. So,
Sure.
All right, question coming in from Scott. This goes back to our projections. Does ProjectionSmart allow me to look at both a best and a worst case scenario?
Yes, it does. We have in both the startup version and the growth version, we have what we call versions. So you could have version 1, which is like my best expectation of what I think is going to happen. And then we might have a best case version. Version 2 might be, well, what if everything goes 10% better than what we had planned on. What will that do to my cash? And then version 3 is, well, what if the bottom falls out? And we might show a 25% decrease in cash, or an increase in cost of sales, or something equally negative, and we can see what version 3 looks like. So we can actually take 3 different looks at the business.
Okay, great. So you said yes with the checkbox next to entrepreneur. Jumping back to that question, what have you learned about being an entrepreneur?
It is the most difficult job that you'll ever have. What I've learned is you have to figure out everything, that nothing is determined for you. You have to figure out, you have to get your product idea, then you have to develop it and test it. And then you have to figure out what is your target market and who wants this product that you created. And then how do I reach that target market? What's the best way to get to these people? And how do I price it? How do I base the pricing? What do I base it on? How do I come up with the pricing? And you're constantly pivoting. You think you're going one way, and then you do some research and go, well, that didn't work. It's the old throwing it against the wall to see what sticks. And if it doesn't stick, then you're pivoting on to something else. And there's nothing for you to copy, because you're creating something new. And that's totally different from an existing business, because an existing business has a product and they have customers, and you have a plan of how to reach those customers, and all that can change. I mean, you can change your sales, you can change your marketing, you can change your product, you can do all that, but you're working from a proven base, and you don't have to figure it all out. And I think that's the biggest difference. And the other one is, as an entrepreneur, it's primarily you. You're making all the decisions, you're doing the research. Hopefully you have a couple of good advisors to help you where in the areas where you're not strong, but it's primarily you.
Very good points. All right, from Eric, longtime listener, interested in what you have learned during the turnarounds that you've spent time on, and what did you see or find as the most challenging situation, and why?
Oh, what did I see? I guess the biggest thing I take away from the turnarounds I've been on is try not to get into that situation. Take action early, understand what's going on, and understand what's happening, because it's a lot easier to make a change early on than waiting too long when it's really hard to fix things. I guess that's the biggest thing. Try to be aware of what's happening. Don't bury your head in the sand. Be honest with what's happening. Figure out your numbers and stay ahead of it. Because if you get behind, it just gets harder and harder.
And then anything else on the whole, because that whole turnaround theme is interesting. Anything else there that you want to share with our audience?
Well, it's difficult, obviously, to be in that situation. It requires a different outlook, a different focus, different dedication. You've got to be willing to challenge everything that you're doing. Nothing's sacred. You've got to get down to your core of what's the most important, what's gonna pull you out of it. I mean, what do you stick with? What works the best? Where are your best chances? What gives you the best opportunities? And focus on that. And it's a constant focus on cash. I think when I've been in really intensive turnarounds, I've spent a full 50% of my time looking at cash. And that means forecasting it, it means collecting it, it means delaying the payment of it. It's all about cash. Those are the biggest takeaways that I have from the experiences.
Great. Yeah, thanks for adding that. That was helpful. All right, so a little bit kind of off the board. I'm interested in the youth coaching of basketball, because I've done that. Woodworking, I give you a lot of credit for doing that. I've seen some of your products on the website and different work that you've done. Very impressive. How, if at all, has those hobbies, the basketball coaching and the woodworking, impacted your thoughts about being business leader, owner, and working with those folks?
Well, the coaching has certainly been a leadership experience. And I would say it the other way around. I think my coaching has benefited from my business leadership experiences, with differences. I mean, when you're dealing with third and fourth grade kids, it's about getting them to want to follow, getting them want to have fun and do the things. So you gotta both draw them in and move them to where you want them to go. Teach them the things you want to teach them, but you have to make it fun. And I guess, now that I say it, that's really not, in a way, that's not too different from any kind of business leadership too, because you have to get people to want to follow you in business too. The best leaders, people want to follow them. So I guess that's kind of more parallel than I realized until I said that. But then it's developing. It's when you have a team, you have to develop the players. You have to develop the players in business, just like you have to develop the players on the basketball court. So lots of parallels, and they're both very enjoyable to me. And I guess a lot of the skills are more transferable than I thought.
Yeah, I thought so and think so as well. Reminder to everybody, #finance. You can put in your questions. You can also submit your name for the free month, 3-month trial of ProjectionSmart. You can use either the startup tool or the growth tool. And then also reminder to hit the subscribe and like button for Club E. And if you do go to the clube.com website, you can find out more information, get a pointer to ProjectionSmart through the tools section. All right, so as you look back on our conversation today, some of the stuff that we've covered, if you're wanting the audience to have one main takeaway, what would that be? Whether we've already covered it and you want to reiterate it, or you want to put something new out there for everybody to remember?
Sure. I would tell people that being able to understand the numbers of your business is really, really important for the reasons that we said, and that you can do it. So many people are intimidated by numbers and finances. I mean, I've had peers just literally back away from the desk when I tried to show them a financial statement. They just wanted nothing to do with it. And it's not intimidating. I would say find the right tool for you, whatever it is. Find something that helps you sort through your numbers and understand them. It'll make your business life entirely different when you can understand what's going on by the numbers.
And then if you were to look back over your career, you've done a lot of interesting things. If there was a lesson that you learned along the way that you would have liked to have learned earlier, what would that have been?
It kind of goes back to the entrepreneur thing. I graduated from college and went right into public accounting and got a job, and I just assumed that I was going to be working at a job for my whole career. And I never considered anything different. And over the years, I started seeing these small business owners and these entrepreneurs, and I started to realize, you know what? They're no smarter than I am. In fact, I have a better education than most of them. And it started to feel like, well, this isn't so intimidating. And at this point in my life, I mean, I'm not ready to retire, but it's out there on the horizon. I mean, I know it's out there. I wish I had figured this out way earlier, that it is something that anybody can do. You have to find the right idea and be committed to it and make it happen. That's the one thing I wish I had figured out earlier.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Roger. I have enjoyed our conversation today. Would like to have you back again. Thank you very much for joining us again. For folks that want to go into the drawing, it's #finance. You get a 3-month free subscription to ProjectionSmart, and you can access that through the tools section at clube.com. Roger, thank you very much for your time and look forward to talking to you again.
Perfect. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.